With the New York Rangers season now officially over as they are not going to be making playoffs, I thought it would be a great idea to take a look at each individual New York Rangers player who played for the team this season and is still on the roster, and we're going to talk about which ones either had a good or a bad season. We're going to kind of go through each individual player and kind of talk about them here because there have been a lot of players who have either had some high moments or some very low moments, and we're going to kind of talk about just in general throughout this entire season obviously which ones have been good and which ones have been bad in their specific roles, because of course a guy like Sam Carrick isn't going to be asked to do the same kind of things or do as much as the guy that can be Panarin is. So we're going to kind of take a look at these players in each of their kind of individual roles and kind of talk about whether or not they did good or bad this season. So let's get right into it here and start off with the forwards, where we have Juuso Parssinen, who was an RFA this upcoming offseason. He's in his kind of mid-20s there, center/winger, 6'3", was acquired at the trade deadline there in that Ryan Lindgren deal where he came over from the Avalanche, part of that package. And I think overall he's a solid player, and I think I would lean more towards him being good than bad this season there after being picked up at the deadline there. I don't think he was anything too good, though. I just don't think he was bad, so I would lean a little more towards the good side of things, but not by a crazy amount. Then we have Johnny Brodzinski, who I think was definitely on the good side there. He was quite phenomenal this season and definitely exceeded my expectations of him. I think it was pretty great offensively and definitely was quite good offensively at moments this season and was pretty clutch as well. So I think he was great overall this season there, put up some great numbers offensively, but also, brought that all-around game that we definitely know he has. And, playing center and wing there definitely provides some good versatility. Then we've got Matt Rempe there, who I think, once again, is another kind of player I would put in the good category. I think he did good this season there. I don't think he did bad. I don't think he was phenomenal, but definitely for what you kind of expect out of him there, I think he did quite well and definitely looked like he improved from last season, which is exactly what you want to see out of a guy like that. Then we have Will Cuylle, who I think definitely had a really great season overall, looked much improved from last season there in his rookie season, so definitely took some pretty massive steps forward in his all-around game there, not just, offensively, but also defensively as well. Even hitting-wise, he got even more physical as well, which was just great to see. So in my opinion, he definitely was well into the good side of things on there. Then you've got Adam Edstrom, who, although, yes, has missed quite a bit of time due to injury, I think when he was healthy, would also be put on the kind of good side of things there. I think he did quite good this season with what you expect out of him there. Him being a, solid kind of young mid-20s kind of guy there, being a bottom six forward, I think he provided a good kind of role there on that fourth line when he was healthy, so I definitely would put him on the good side of things there. Although he didn't do anything too crazy, I would kind of put him on the good side of things. They're definitely not the bad, so overall a pretty good season out of Adam. Then you got Brendan Othmann there, who I would kind of put in the middle there, honestly. I am a pretty big fan of Othmann. Many of you may know that already, but I'm a pretty big fan of Othmann there. I think overall, I would kind of put him in the middle there. He wasn't necessarily kind of bad, but also wasn't good, and maybe I would lean, honestly, towards more of the bad. I think, it was not necessarily that he played terrible. I just don't think he brought as much as I was kind of hoping for, especially offensively. Now, he did create some chances there and had some chances to kind of score himself, but obviously he hasn't had his first career NHL goal yet. I am recording this video before the last game there against Tampa, so we'll see what happens there, but obviously, Othmann has had the greatest season in the world, so I would kind of lean maybe towards the kind of bad side of things by a little bit there, but I do have hope for him, going forward that he definitely can be a very good player. Then you've got Brett Berard, who I think for his expectations did quite good, honestly. I think you could say he was on the good side of things there. Othmann wasn't too far in the bad, though. I just don't think was as good as I kind of expected, whereas a guy like, Berard there, I think did exceed kind of my expectations of him, so I would definitely put him on the good side of things. Then you've got Gabe Perreault, who honestly, as of right now, so far, before this Tampa game, though, kind of what we've seen so far in those 4 games, I would lean more towards the kind of bad side of things there. But again, it's kind of like Othmann there, where I don't necessarily think it's like he's played terrible. I just don't think he's kind of, exceeded those expectations or done anything too crazy there. So I'd kind of leave, both Othmann and Perreault kind of on the kind of middle side of things there, more towards the kind of bad. But obviously, they definitely have been like bad players, just they haven't done anything too crazy. So that's kind of why I would lean them more towards the bad by a little bit. And you got Sam Carrick, though, who I think overall has been really great this season there for a, fourth line center, making $1 million per season. I think he did quite great this season and definitely exceeded my expectations there offensively as well. He did great, but just that all-around game that he brings there and being able to kind of jump up into that third line, if he absolutely has to at moments, is a bit of a plus there. So overall, he had a pretty great season. Then you got Alexis Lafreniere, who obviously is going to be on the bad side of things there, although put up some decent overall numbers and 5-on-5 wise, still produced decently. I just think overall had way too many moments this season there where it felt like kind of week after week, maybe or a couple weeks in a row, he just kind of didn't show up there and was quite quiet for, quite a long time at moments. So I think that's one thing where he definitely has to get more consistent. But overall, wasn't a terrible season there. It just wasn't the kind of season I expected and many Rangers fans expected as well, especially after getting that pretty massive contract extension. And now for Vincent Trocheck, I think overall I would slightly lean towards the kind of bad. I think he didn't have like a terrible season. It's just he didn't do quite as much. He's kind of done maybe in past seasons. Therefore, this team wasn't quite as good. So I would lean towards the bad a little bit there, but he wasn't like a terrible player by any means this season. Then you've got Chris Kreider, who obviously is going to be on the bad side of things there. He had a pretty terrible season, although, still scored a decent little bit of goals there. Obviously didn't have the good all-around impact like he has had in past seasons there. Definitely wasn't the good all-around player. So I think pretty bad season there from Kreider. Hopefully we do see a trade happen there, although he is, kind of a franchise legend, you could say. Obviously just hasn't had a good season there, so I definitely would lean more towards the bad side of things. Then you've got JT Miller there, who after being picked up at the deadline, I think played a pretty great overall kind of, bit there. I think that sample size that he had since the trade deadline, he's done a pretty great job, and I think he kind of continued to show that he can definitely be a star caliber player for this Rangers team. So I'm hopeful that it can continue that kind of going forward with this Rangers team that definitely needed a guy like JT Miller to be added in to this lineup. And you've got Mika Zibanejad, who I think, if you kind of look at it two different ways, you get two different answers there from me. If you take a look at kind of the first half of the season there before he made the move to wing, obviously it was absolutely terrible. But when you kind of consider what he was doing and how bad he was at moments when he was playing center, and then you kind of flip it over to him, switching to wing, I think it was a good season there after what we saw, previously with him being a center. So I think it's kind of an interesting one there. But overall, not a great season from Mika, obviously, but him switching to wing there, he definitely started to play a lot better, which was, a good thing. Obviously, he played quite good at moments on the wing. Obviously, still not great and still not worth quite $8.5 million, but definitely wasn't nearly as bad when he was at center. Then finally, for the last forward, we have Artemi Panarin, who I think overall had another good season there. He wasn't anything, game-breaking this season. There wasn't anything, career high-wise, but obviously just had another really good season there, I think, putting up about 90 points there, which was phenomenal to see, especially in a season where the Rangers' power play went from one of the best to one of the worst. I think he did a pretty great job overall this season there. So definitely Artemi Panarin showed up once again this season, although at moments, was quiet like some other players were for this team, but overall, start to finish there, had a pretty good overall season for a guy who was, getting into his mid-30s. They're obviously still a very, very talented player, though, and definitely is going to be a big part of this team for next season. And that's pretty much going to do it for today's video, though. I am going to have one coming out a little later on another day, kind of talking about the defensemen and goaltenders in a video together, but overall, I just want to talk about which of the forwards there, kind of have had either good season or a bad season there, or have kind of been in about the middle there, because obviously, there have been some highs this season, but obviously a lot of lows. There are a lot of players who, haven't played great and maybe haven't met those expectations. So I think overall, it's been a tough season, but this team does have some good pieces going forward. So that's kind of the nice thing there. It's about building the kind of right players around those kind of, building blocks for this team. The guys like the, Panarins, the JT Millers, what you hope of, like, Cooley's and the Lafrenières and the Adam Foxes and the Schneiders, those kind of guys there that you can help build around there, and Igor obviously as well. Those guys are good building blocks, but you need to kind of put the right pieces around those guys to really kind of potentially get this team on the right track to really winning a Stanley Cup. So we're going to see what happens there. But anyways, I hope you have enjoyed this video a ton. If you have, definitely don't forget to leave a like and click that subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content. And of course, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on today's video and on all the New York Rangers forwards. How do you think they've done this season? If you want to, definitely leave a grade, A+, B+, B-, whatever you want to, in the comment section down below. Let me know how you thought these players have done this season. I'll catch you next one, and let's go Rangers.